Hello everyone, I'm Keen47, aka Wolfkeen, and welcome to another edition of A Wolf's Word, where you get the word straight from the wolf's mouth. Now today on A Wolf's Word, I'm going to be talking about a game that has been released by Naughty Dog, which is going to be a PS3 which was a PS3 exclusive. A game in which humanity has gone through an epidemic and infected are now covering the world, and you play as one of the characters trying to survive. I am of course talking about The Last of Us. The Last of Us is probably one of my most anticipated games of 2013. Yeah, I know last year my most anticipated game was Assassin's Creed 3, and unfortunately it disappointed me. Well, I've got some good news. This game had a lot of I guess the word is advertising. It had a lot of trailers and stuff like that, and there were a lot of press reports and stuff like that about this game. So this game had a lot of hype to live up to, and honestly, it lived up to all that hype. Now I know what you're about to say. What do you mean by that? Well, let's talk about the game a little bit. The story. The story of the game is that you play as this character named Joel. I have no clue how old he is. He looks like he's in his 50s. Joel is basically one of the few survivors from the beginning of the infection. Basically, he was around when the infection first started 20 years ago. So 20 years later, he works as a smuggler with his partner Tess. They are basically smugglers who basically smuggle items out of the city or to different people in different locations. Basically, after going through a certain job with Tess, you were hired by the Fireflies, which is supposed to be a rebel group who are trying to reestablish the old ways of the old government, because the military has has like this iron fist over people, have like this strict rule and control over people in the quarantine zones. Basically you're hired by the Fireflies to escort this girl Ellie, who basically has been infected. She's been infected for about 3 weeks now. According to a paper, infection takes 1 to 2 days to change you, to turn you into one of the infected, because the infection supposedly travels to the brain and then takes control of it. But for some reason, Ellie has been infected for 3 weeks, and she hasn't lost control of herself. So your job is to take Ellie to the Firefly group out west. So maybe they can come up with a cure. Like they can actually maybe come up with a cure because of Ellie. Now I know you're about to say this story has been done multiple times in the past, and I will say, yeah, it has been in many cases. But this one works a little bit more effectively because this isn't a virus. Like people think like, oh, it's ripping off Resident Evil. No, this isn't a virus. This is a fungal virus. If you know what fungi is, it's mushrooms. Basically, there's like this fungi virus. I don't remember what it was called, but CDI, I think. It used to infect plants and stuff like that, but then it all of a sudden mutated and started infecting humans. So the only way to get infected with this virus is to be bitten or to breathe in the spores that are sometimes in an area where infected are. This virus is a lot different compared to just natural zombies or something like that, because there are different levels of infection, but the infection level depends on how long they've been infected. Now back to the story. The reason why this game works so well with the story is the fact that one, the characters actually work very well. At first, it just seems like a business job. To get me, like at first, it seems like a business job. Get Ellie to this location, job done. But then it just starts becoming more and more. Like it starts changing. The one thing that they do well with this story is they make you connect with the two characters you play as, Ellie and Joel. Basically when you connect to these two characters, Ellie and Joel, like there'll be conversation pieces in different locations in the game. Like a good example is that Ellie found a arcade cabinet of a fighting game, and she talked about it briefly to Joel. If you initiate that conversation, she'll talk about it briefly to Joel and talk about what she knows about it from listening about it from a friend. So basically, there are different conversation pieces that help you understand Ellie a little bit more. And hell, there's a lot to like about this story. Like the story keeps changing no matter what. Like, the story is never predictable. This is one of the least predictable stories I've ever seen in my life. Because it seems like whenever they get you used to something, something happens. Like, it's a train ride. You never know what's going to happen next. You never know when's the next situation going to happen. It's one of those games where, like, it's a train ride from beginning to end, and you'll never know where you're going until you get there. This is why I like The Last of Us so much. The story to this game has such an unpredictable story that you can never tell what's going to happen next. Trust me, I tried. I tried guessing what was going to happen next. I tried guessing certain situations, but I was never able to, and so weren't my viewers. This story is very unpredictable. Like, there's no way you can guess any of the situations in any way, shape, or form. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. That's being brutally honest. Anything could happen. This is why I love the story to this game, and I really feel like the story is pretty excellent because not only is it a good story, it's very unpredictable, so you never are able to guess what's going to happen next. And there's a lot of emotional value in the story. Like, they make you care about characters that you meet along the way. They make you care about characters the existing characters, Ellie and Joel. They make you care about everything that's going on. Even the decisions, I know there are no moral decisions, but even your decisions feel, they kind of stay with you after time. And this is what I mean about The Last of Us. Like, this story was freaking amazing, and that's being brutally honest. Now let's talk about characters. Basically the two main characters are on the front of this case. That you got Joel and Ellie. Basically, Joel, like I said, is around a 50-year-old man who's a smuggler, hired by the Fireflies to smuggle Ellie. Ellie is a 14-year-old girl who was basically infected, but for some reason has been able to withstand his immune because she's been infected for 3 weeks. After circumstances, Joel became a closed-in person. He really doesn't, see any hope in humanity in many cases, and he really doesn't see, like, the good in mankind anymore. He's a pessimist. Joel is a pessimist in many cases. He imagines the worst situation possible, and he never takes the situation as it is. He usually takes it as, like, the worst possible situation, which is being brutally honest. Joel just never has a positive side to him in the earlier parts of the game. While Ellie, the reason why Ellie's such a good character is because she's a smartass. She curses everybody out. I mean, seriously, she'll curse anybody out. Calling, one person a dickhead, curse someone else, say, hey, you like, stuff like that. She'll freaking curse everybody she sees. Even people that you shouldn't even be, going against like that. Like, she'll do that constantly. And this is part of her character. This is part of her character. One of my favorite instances, without spoiling, is that at one instance she was handcuffed to a pipe and Joel was put on his knees by a character that you meet. Ellie broke the pipe and then smacked the guy right across his head with it. It pretty much shows that Ellie is a very tough person. Like, she's very tough, she's capable, and she's able to handle herself very well. While at the same time, she also has a very optimistic view on the world. Even though the world is gone, Ellie is very optimistic. Like, honestly, it's very hard to see that in a survival game, like an optimist, because she still sees, like, the way the world could have been. Because she was born after the pandemic, so she didn't see the world, before all this happened. So she doesn't know what the world used to look like. She only knows how it looks like now, and she only knows certain things from details from her friends, books, and other stuff like that. And just hearing her talk about, what the old world used to be like and stuff like that is actually very riveting because it really makes you think about it. The one thing that I do like about The Last of Us is that it honestly makes you think, what would you do in a situation like this? What would you do if the world was to all of a sudden end? What if there was an apocalypse? The Last of Us really portrays that question perfectly because you see the world being worn and torn. Like, even though the world is broken apart, they still have their good parts about it. Like, there's still good moments to the world, even though the world is practically destroyed at this point. This is what I loved about The Last of Us, and this is going to lead us into the next part. Character-wise, the characters are all very colorful. all the characters that you meet in the game all have their different personalities and preferences, and they all have a great voice acting. The voice acting in this game is top notch. There's no bad performance from anyone. And that's pretty hard to say because in most games, there's a bad performance from one actor or something like that. All of the actors have great performances. Hell, even the enemy AI have good performances in their conversations. Like enemy AI will start searching the. I know I should talk about this with gameplay, but I'm gonna talk about their talking patterns real quick. Basically, when you're trying to get past enemies, they'll sometimes meet up with each other and be like, "Did you find anything? No, I was unable to find anyone, sir. Crap. All right, you look over here. I'll check inside here." Like they'll actually have conversations with each other, trying to figure out a plan, and they'll actually formulate strategies to try to find you, which I think is pretty cool. And if you kill one of them, they'll actually begin to wonder where he is. Like I killed an enemy that had a conversation with him. It was like, "Did you find anything? Hey, are you there? Hello?" Like he'll actually respond to his friend not being there and actually look around to see what happened. This is what I mean, like the talking performances, just the voice acting is freaking amazing in every way, shape, or form. What about the graphics? Do I even need to explain this? I haven't seen graphics this good since Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider had some amazing graphics. And this game does not suffer. Like this game has great graphics. From the sprawling undergrounds of the tunnels to the luscious areas of the forest to the cold tundra of the mountains to the worn and torn areas of the streets. It's like everything is perfectly made in their situational beings. And to see, the environment, entangle the world, grass growing in the highways, grass growing around buildings and stuff like that, to see all of this, it just makes you want to look at this. Like, honestly, these graphics are freaking amazing, especially during some of the key moments. During some of the key sequences and stuff like that, the graphics completely shine. And it just looks freaking good. I haven't ran into any problems with the graphics. I didn't run into any tearing or low resolution graphics in any way, shape, or form or anything like that, but it's unbelievable. These graphics are freaking amazing. There's nothing bad I could say about the graphics. Now, let's move on to soundtrack. Again, this is a perfect part of the game. The soundtrack for the game is probably one of my favorite parts of the game because each music portrays, some of the sequences perfectly. From just walking down the street to having a conversation to sneaking around a group of infected to getting into combat with a bunch of human enemies. The music cues never fail, and they always work consistently with each other, and they always work seamless with each other. This is by far one of my favorite soundtracks in a video game. The Last of Us is by far one of my favorite soundtracks in a video game. I mean, this game, I don't know. I really can't find any faults with it. I really can't. But that's the thing. Right now, everything has been nearly perfect. I'm saying nearly perfect because, there could be someone that's done it better or something like that. I mean, look at Bioshock Infinite. Those games' graphics are freaking amazing. I'm not saying that The Last of Us is better than Bioshock Infinite, but I'm trying, because I haven't played Bioshock Infinite, but what I'm trying to say is that the graphics in The Last of Us work seamlessly together because they portray the apocalypse perfectly. This is what I wish Fallout had, but a lot of people tell me Metro Last Light has it, but I digress. Graphics look freaking good. I know people will love it to death, even on low resolutions. I was playing this in 480p and it looked freaking gorgeous. Imagine in full 1080. You know it will look beautiful. Now, let's get into the biggest part. Gameplay. The gameplay of this game makes it that, ammo and items are limited. Basically, they incorporate this new system. Basically, you can craft items on the fly, but when you try to craft items, you leave yourself open. So you have to pick the right situation to actually craft these items. Basically, be like, I'm in combat, I need to craft a health pack because my health is low. So basically, if I have the items, basically you collect items like rags, blades, sugar, bomb materials, and other stuff like that. And basically, you can use these to create items like a health kit, a shiv, a Molotov, and other stuff like that. And all these items work perfectly because Molotov is good for taking out whole groups of enemies. The shiv is good for taking out enemies quickly and silently without having to strangle them. And the health pack heals you. Basically, there's no regenerating health in this game, which I know a lot of people would say, oh, that's a bad thing. It's not. If you're smart, you won't have to worry about your health being so low if you're smart in the game. The crafting system works fairly well because, honestly, you have to search around. In a survival game, you're always wanting to search around. Well, in this game, they give you an excuse because you could end up searching a room and finding, oh, there's a couple of blades in here. There's a couple of alcohol in here. Oh, I got enough to make a health kit. Let me make a health kit before I get into combat again. It makes you want to search around, and it makes you care for searching around, which is why I think it works seamlessly together. The crafting system works very well, and the cool thing is that you can do the crafting system at any time. You could do it in combat, you could do out of combat, or any stuff like that. This is what I mean, like, it works seamlessly together, and honestly, it's a freaking a beaut to see. And that's being honest, and I forgot to turn off my TV in front of me. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Anyways, the cool thing about the combat is never quiet. It's very hectic. You can approach combat in multiple ways. You could try sneaking around and taking out your opponents with stealth, using weapons like the shivs, strangles, maybe melee weapons, or you can even use later weapons they get, which are silent. You can also approach it gung-ho. You can go guns blazing, but you have to remember that ammo is limited. They make ammo limited because they don't want you to stockpile like 40, 50, 60 bullets of one kind and then just go guns blazing in one part. This is not Uncharted. This is not a game where you can stockpile bullets among bullets among bullets and expect to win hundreds of gunfights by just getting into gunfights. In this game, you have to plan out your situations perfectly. If you just choose to go guns blazing, you're going to end up getting yourself killed a lot more than usual. And I've seen this happen. People getting themselves killed because they just want to rush people, they want to blitz the game, and that's something you should never do. But I will say this, the enemy AI is very smart. They will use tactics to find you. They will search areas. Their tactics will change depending on what's going on. Like if you killed one of their allies, their tactics will change. They will become more alert. They will be searching corners more frequently. They will be searching different areas more frequently. So their enemy AI is actually very, very good, and they actually work together. Like if you throw a brick and two enemies hear it, they'll acknowledge that they both heard it. One person will go check it out, while the other one will stay behind to see if anybody follows up with that, or to see if his friend gets taken out. So honestly, the AI works very well together, and gameplay-wise, it works very well together. Another thing about the gameplay is that you can choose to go into melee or gun combat. Melee weapons work like this. Like you can pick up a different melee weapon and stuff like that. And the cool thing is, the melee weapon can also be crafted to have a blade at the end of it. Basically, when you put a blade at the end of your melee weapon, you're able to insta-kill anyone that gets hit. But it's a one use unless you get the upgrades. There are upgrades in the game that basically allow you to extend the usage of certain items. Like, you can find a combat manual on how to improve your shivs, so this way you can use it more than once before it breaks. You can find a combat manual about, how to make Molotovs explode on a wider range or something like that. You can find a training manual that makes certain items last longer, stuff like that. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, if you look around, you'll find like upgrades, which will allow you to keep upgrading your character, Joel. You'll be able to keep upgrading him, and you'll be able to get stronger. And speaking of which, there are two ways you can upgrade Joel. One, you can pick up parts around the game. Basically, when you pick up these parts, you can take them to a workbench and do upgrades to your guns that you have on you. So say you could do probably upgrades to like your pistol, put the reload speed up a little bit, or maybe some upgrades to capacity on your, hunting rifle or something like that. These upgrades are completely up to you, but the good thing is that they make it that you need to have certain part levels. Basically, you'll basically find part levels around the game. When you find part levels, you're allowed to upgrade the gun again to a certain extent. So basically be like, oh, I upgraded this gun. I needed 0 parts to upgrade this. Now I need 1 part to upgrade the capacity again. So you got to find a level 1 part in order for you to upgrade it. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, finding these parts are important because they allow you to upgrade your guns further, as well as upgrade them to the maximum extent. Then you have supplements, which are basically pills. These supplements will allow you to upgrade various things on Joel, be it his maximum health, weapon sway, the listening mode, or even the shiv. Basically, you can upgrade the shiv so it has more durability, and you'll be able to escape clickers with it without breaking it. Now, I know you're about to ask me about the infected. I'm going to talk about that separately. What else do I need to talk about? Upgrading is not, and I will say this: the cool thing about this game is that if you don't upgrade what you want, there's a new game plus option. You could basically replay the game and keep everything you got, and basically play again. So basically, you could go through the game again in New Game Plus and probably look for some of the collectibles and stuff like that you missed. Basically, there are collectibles all over the game that will talk about different stories, like different people's survival stories. Like one story being that this guy went to the sewers to try to survive with their family, and then you find a note which talks about their end, like what happened to them afterwards, after they went to the sewers. Like, there's so many side stories in these notes that you just can't help but want to find them all to figure out what happened to some of these survivors and to see if they actually survived or not, like if they died. It really makes you care, like, about looking for these collectibles. There are different collectibles. There's notes that you can find. There's audio recordings. There's Firefly dog tags, which are kind of like the COG tags from Gears of War. And then there's the comic books, which are what Ellie is reading. You can find these comic books, too, all over the place. I mean, that's the cool thing. I think there's about 143 collectibles. I only collected 75. So that tells you that I could, go back and find the rest of these collectibles if I want to. That's what I mean. Like, the gameplay for this game is unbelievably immense because combat is hectic and you really have to think about your strategies. If you could choose not to kill a single enemy as well, you could just choose to avoid combat altogether. And sometimes that's a better option than just fighting every enemy you see. Because 1, you'll save yourself ammo, 2, you won't get hurt, and 3, you'll save yourself a lot of headaches later because you'll probably enter an area that they can't follow you. And that's what I'm trying to say. The gameplay for this game works seamlessly together, and that's freaking amazing. Let's talk about the infected before I move on. The infected in The Last of Us, as you know, is from a fungi virus. Basically, there are 4 levels of infection, supposedly. The first level is known as runners. Runners are basically the standard infected. They can basically still see you, but they're deaf. They can't hear anything. So basically, supposedly the runners are deaf. I'm not sure if that's true or not. No, they're not deaf. I know they aren't. Because I could throw a brick and they'll hear it or something like that. But the runners are basically the standard infected. They can keep up with a normal human by chasing after them, and if they mob attack you, they can do some serious damage to you. The second level of infected is clickers. Clickers are basically these enemies that, well, click, like do this like I can't do the noise, but you get what I mean. Like this clicking noise. And this clicking noise basically allows them to see if people are in the area. Clickers hear by sound, not see by sound, not by sight. They're blind. But the thing about clickers, what makes them dangerous, is that they're insta-kill enemies. If a clicker grabs you and you don't have a shiv, you're dead. But if you have a shiv when a clicker tries to grab you, you can hit the triangle button and escape them, allowing you to stun them for a second and finish them off if you want to. Clickers can be killed with only shivs. You can't go behind them and strangle them. You have to have a shiv to kill a clicker. While the runners, you can just sneak behind and hit them with, and you can just sneak behind and strangle them to death, or hit them with the shiv. The third level of infection is called bloaters. Bloaters are these big tank-like enemies who are 2 times the build of a human and 2 times the size of a human. Bloaters basically attack by throwing spores at you, which is the same spores that can cause infection. Stay in the spores too long and you'll die. The thing is about the bloater is that bloaters are pretty tough enemies unless you know how to kill them. And if a bloater grabs you, forget it, you're dead. There is no escaping a bloater's grab. Bloaters will instantly kill you, and I gotta be honest, the death sequence with the bloater is pretty freaking brutal. Now they said there was a fourth level of infection, but I did not see it playing the game. I did not see it playing the game, so I really wouldn't be able to tell you. The infected works very well because, even though there's not a wide variety of infected, they still keep you on your toes because the runners can give you a good run for your money if you're not careful. No pun intended. The clickers, they're dangerous enough on their own, but when you have to fight a whole group of clickers, they become dangerous, like really dangerous. And it really makes you think about your situation. Like, it honestly makes you think about the situation before you go. Now, the last thing I need, and the bloaters, you really need to be careful with these guys. You need to stay back, fight them from afar, and not let them grab you. Bloaters will sometimes charge at you to try to grab you, so they're not stupid. They won't just, stay there standing still, walking towards you like Nemesis. They will actually chase you down if given the chance. Lastly, I'm going to talk about this real quick. There's a mode called listening mode. Listening mode basically allows you to listen in on footsteps, conversations, and stuff like that. When your character Joel hears footsteps and stuff like that, the character will appear as like a silhouette, basically allowing you to see where he is through walls and allowing you to plan your strategies properly. But the thing is that the listening mode is very limited at times. Sometimes you won't even see the silhouette. Sometimes you'll just hear footsteps. So basically you won't even see them. You'll just hear like noises coming from like the floor, and you'll have to plan your strategy a different way. And trust me, this does happen later in the game that, you'll only see like footsteps instead of just, normal things. Is instead of just a silhouette. But the listening mode comes in massive handy. I would recommend using that as much as possible because not only can the listening mode keep you alive, it can help you plan your strategies more properly and figure out how to handle each situation if you want to handle it stealthily or if you want to handle it gung-ho. It depends on you. The game, it said, on average would take about 15 to 20 hours to beat. I beat it in 13 hours. But remember something, guys. I can go back and play New Game Plus, and I can go back and play it again. Would you want to play it again? Yeah, maybe. Because now that you have all the weapons, you could probably approach situations a lot differently than you used to. Like, oh, I couldn't approach this situation like this because I only had these weapons. Now that I have this weapon, I can approach it this way. So it allows you to experiment a little bit more when you play New Game Plus, and you can always look for the extra collectibles and conversations with Ellie that you missed out on in the first playthrough. So there is a reason to go back and play it again. And the ending, I freaking love it. I love the ending to The Last of Us. I'm not going to spoil it, but I do love the ending of The Last of Us. It leaves plenty of room for there to be a sequel. I'm not even lying. The ending of The Last of Us leaves plenty of room to be a sequel and stuff like that. I'm not going to spoil it or anything like that. I'm not saying it's a good ending or a bad ending or anything like that. I'm just telling you that there is actually a chance for there to be a sequel. I'm going to let you find the end. I'm going to let you see the ending before, anything else because I don't like spoiling. Now, if that was it, I can grade The Last of Us right here and there. But that's not it. We have multiplayer in The Last of Us. A lot of people thought the multiplayer was going to be a tacked on mode or something like that, but Naughty Dog has shown us they never tack on their modes. And oh my god, they delivered. The Last of Us multiplayer basically works like the single player. You play as two groups, the Hunters or the Fireflies. Basically, when you choose a group, you start with like a number of survivors in your camp. Basically, basically the backstory of the multiplayer, yeah, there's actually a backstory. You're setting up a camp in Hunter or Firefly territory, and you're trying to gather supplies in that area. Your job is to basically find survivors, gather supplies and intel, and try to keep yourselves alive until week 12, where you'll be extracted. I don't know what happens when you go through extraction because I haven't been to week 12 yet, but I do know for a fact the multiplayer is very addicting because it makes you want to keep doing good. Because if you don't do good in a match, some survivors could get hungry, some could get sick, or some could even end up dead. So you really have to be careful with what you're doing in each situation because the multiplayer hinges on your survivors. So your multiplayer experience hinges on your survivors. So basically, you do bad in a multiplayer match, your survivors are going to suffer. The thing is that I don't think there's a level progression. I don't think there's a level progression in this game. I think there's just a week progression. Basically, when you make it to certain weeks or get a certain amount of survivors, sorry, when you get a certain amount of, when you get a certain amount of survivors, when you get a certain amount of supplies and stuff like that, you will be able to unlock. Sorry about that, man. My allergies. Okay, you'll be able to unlock new weapons, new equipment for your character to wear, and other stuff like that. Basically, allowing you to customize your character as well as customize your loadout. The loadouts work very well because basically you get 10 loadout points. Each item or something like that takes a certain amount of loadout points. Like, oh, the sniper rifle that I got takes 2 loadout points. And the pistol that I got takes no loadout points, so I can equip a pistol. These perks right here, like I put 3 perks, one costs 1 point and the others cost 2 points. Basically leaving me with points to spare if I want to use it on something else. What makes this very interesting is that the weapons can actually be upgraded to later extensions. Like the pistol can be upgraded to a silenced pistol, but that costs 2 upgrade. That costs 2 loadout points. And the sniper rifle that's already at 2 loadout points, you can equip it with a silencer, but that would cost 4 loadout points. It basically makes it that you have to create a balance for yourself because you're not going to be able to make the most overpowered class possible. And if anybody tries to say, oh, you can just rush around and kill people, no, you can't. In this game, in this multiplayer, you need to work with your team. Trust me, I've seen my teammates try to do things on their own, and they end up getting themselves killed because they got, there was a group of 3 waiting for him because he was sprinting across the map. Basically, there's 2 modes in the multiplayer. I do wish there were more, but there are 2 modes. Supply Raid and Survivors. Supply Raid is basically each team gets 20 spawns. The first team to run out of spawns and be eliminated loses. And in Survivors, it's basically 1 life spawns. The team to win the most rounds will win the game. Now, I know what you're about to ask me. How do you gather supplies and how do you gather other stuff? You can gather supplies in 2 different. You can gather supplies by killing your enemy, or you can get supplies by converting parts into supplies after the game is over. You get parts by killing enemies, picking up equipment, and other stuff like that. And basically, this will allow you to keep, your survivors going in your well, I guess they're calling it your clan. The thing is, in the multiplayer, you never want to rush. You want to use everything to your advantage, and you want to use your team to your advantage. Teamwork is absolutely necessary to do well in this multiplayer. If you try to do something by yourself, you're going to end up getting killed. If you work with the team, you're going to do fairly well. And the cool thing about this multiplayer is it works exactly like the single player. Pick up some supplies from some of the chests in the area, you can make yourself a shiv and backstab someone and kill them instantly. You can make yourself a bomb and basically set that up as like a trap for your enemies. You can set up Molotovs, which will basically, insta-kill any enemies that are caught within its flames. So basically, it still has the same preference as the single player. You're able to craft items and other crap like that, and honestly, the multiplayer can yield you many hours of fun, and it's very addicting, especially if you can get a team of 4 to go along with you. Like, if you can get 3 of your best friends to go in there and you can coordinate, you could definitely do some work in that multiplayer. I'm saying it right now, the multiplayer is definitely really good. Naughty Dog did their job. So, were there any problems with The Last of Us when I played? Not really. A lot of people ran into bugs, but I didn't. I didn't run into any bugs whatsoever when I was playing. I only ran into one, but it wasn't reoccurring. Basically, there was a bug where my health bar broke. Like, I couldn't see my health or something like that. After, turning off my console and then turning it back on, I actually, after turning off my console and turning it back on, the health bar was fixed, and it never happened again. So, really, I'm going to let that bug pass because it only happened once to me. And honestly, I was able to fix it very simply. If it was a continual bug that just kept happening over and over and over again, or it happened, again in a later part or something like that, or, it wouldn't fix itself until I made it to a certain chapter, then I would be complaining about this bug. But since it was only a one-time deal, I didn't really get bothered with the bug. A lot of the bugs that people ran into, I didn't run into. There was a bug in the forest, which I didn't run into, and there were a couple of enemy bugs, but I didn't run into those either. So honestly, bug-wise, I didn't run into much. I guess it depends on you. Maybe you'll run into these bugs, maybe you won't. But honestly, in my playthrough, I didn't run into them. So I really can't talk about bugs that I never ran into. So what do I think about The Last of Us? What do I think about this game? by far my favorite PS3 game of all time. This is one of the best games on the PS3. I'm sorry, but this really is one of the best games on the PS3. It has great story, great characters, great build-up, great suspense, great everything. There's barely any problems with this game. I'm sorry, but I'm having a rough time coming up with a single problem with this game. I love every second of it. I love every character that was on screen. I love everything about this game. And I love the freaking... I know the enemy types are on the slim side, but I don't think we needed that many enemy types. Just give us human enemies that, are, competent enough and know what they're doing, which is good. As a matter of fact, I forgot to mention that Ellie will let you know if enemies are coming on your left or right. Like, she'll sometimes see enemies coming at you, or she'll even help you out in combat by throwing a brick or a bottle at the enemy, basically allowing you to stun them and kill them. Honestly, guys, this is one of the best games on the PS3. I mean, I can't recommend this game any higher. I thought, the hype was over, I thought the hype was a little bit too much because I saw people giving the game 10 out of 10s, 5 out of 5s, and I didn't really believe that because I felt like, no, there's no way that a game could be that high and that good because I haven't played a game like that since Red Dead Redemption. Yes, Red Dead Redemption has some bugs, but they weren't glaringly annoying. This game does have bugs, but they're not glaringly annoying like Red Dead Redemption. And I'm sorry, but just like in Red Dead Redemption, you could end up dumping hours into this game because of the fact that the story is so much fun and the gameplay is so fluid and functional. I can't recommend this game any higher. So this is why, for the first time on a Wolf's Word, I'm going to give this game my highest score possible. The Last of Us gets a 10 out of 10. This is the best game I've ever played in a long time. I mean, I don't know what to say. What can I say? This game is amazing. There is no way anyone could say this game is bad. There's no way anyone could say this game sucks. There's no way anyone could do it. A lot of people are saying it's overrated, but those are the people who don't understand it. They're probably the ones who didn't even experience the game. Like, they're probably the ones who watched it, and that's about it. In order for you to understand this game, you need to experience it. You need to actually play this game. There's not much I could say. I mean, this game's good. This game's... Buy the game! Why are you watching my video? Why are you still watching? You already got my score. Get this game. Go to your GameStop. Go to your Best Buy. Go on Amazon. Go on Craigslist. Go somewhere. Get this game. Get it now. If you have a PS3, get it. If you don't have a PS3, buy a PS3 and get this game. This is probably one of the best games on the PS3, and it is a perfect send-off by Naughty Dog, being one of the last few exclusives on the PS3 until we reach the next generation consoles. The Last of Us, 10 out of 10. Get this game right now. Go get it. So there you go, guys. That's my thoughts on The Last of Us, and that's my review on The Last of Us. A perfect score, 10 out of 10. There's no way I could recommend this game any higher to anyone. Anyone could play this game and enjoy themselves, I'm willing to bet. As long as you're willing to take your time with the game, and as long as you're willing to actually engage yourself in the game. Let yourself lose yourself into the game. Don't try to just rush the game. Don't try to blitz it. Just enjoy the experience. Enjoy what's in front of you. Because honestly, that's the only way you can play this game and actually enjoy yourself with this game. You have to let yourself go and enjoy the experience. And that's being brutally honest. I honestly see why so many people gave this game such high scores, and I agree, it deserves it. So, thank you guys for watching. This has been A Wolf's Word. So until next time, I'm Keen947, aka Wolfkeen. Take care.